anyone talks about trap games or taking an opponent lightly, or just flat out not being prepared, regardless of that opponent, the first thing I think about is, yeah, but what about the individuals? Are there individuals competing with other individuals for places on that team? Good morning to you. Good Thursday morning from Cincinnati. I'm Dejan Kovacevic of DK Pittsburgh Sports. This is Daily Shot of Steelers presented by FanDuel. It comes your way bright and early every weekday. If you're into hockey and or baseball, I also offer daily shots of Penguins and Pirates in the same place that you found this. Steelers versus Bengals is an 8:15 p.m. official kickoff time at Paycor Stadium. It pits two teams heading in decidedly different directions against each other, and that's fine. That's fine. I'll say it one final time this week. First and foremost, prevail. Secondly, put up 30 points. And third, don't lapse into any lousy habits. But beyond that, one of the many things that has me feeling good about the way this could go in general tonight is that I don't get the sense that things are all that static on either side of the ball. And that's something that's unusual about this team at 4-1. If you think about it, most teams that get to this stage, winning 80% of their games and sitting in first place, never mind a mile ahead of the pack in first place, they've got 11 starters on each side. When it comes time to introduce those starters to the home crowd at Acrisure Stadium, everyone knows who the 11 will be, barring injury. Well, the Steelers didn't have a defensive injury against the Browns, but the Steelers still introduced not 11, but 12 defensive players. That was Mike Tomlin's call. He wanted to get Nick Herbig introduced. He wanted to treat Herbig like one of the starting outside linebackers. And what do you know? The following were the snap counts. This is just on the regular defense. These don't include special teams or anything. For the outside linebackers, Herbig had 50. TJ Watt had 49. Alex Highsmith had 47. Now, does that mean they think more of Herbig than they do TJ, or even for that matter, Alex? No, of course it doesn't. What it does signify is that they were used in a rotation. They were used in a way that would keep everybody healthier, but also keep them more energetic in a short week. This was something that had been discussed going back to the summertime. It was put into very, very good use this past Sunday. But there's also another way to look at this. Not necessarily at outside linebacker. The rotation's the rotation. All three of those players deserve to be on the field. All three of them deserve to be starters. And they all benefit from the rotation. All of them. TJ, by the way, loves the rotation stuff. Feels like he can really sell out when he is out there. But what do you make of this? Let's just stick to the defensive line. These were your snap count leaders up front. Keanu Benton was first with 49. Then Derek Harmon with one fewer. Cam Hayward was third with 43 of those. Y.A. Black had 16, Daniel Ekuale 11, and Isezi Otomewu had 10. My friends, that's a whole lot of double-digit snap counts for a room that, if you think about it, a positional room that's only got two guys pretty much guaranteed to be on the field in a given snap. 2. Let me tell you what that signifies. Competition. In-season competition. If this were a playoff game tonight, you know and I know Cam would be getting way more snaps. You know that Harmon's earned more snaps. And you know there'd be some other ones to go around, but you don't know who those would go to. Would they go, for example, to Benton, that we saw in the first couple of weeks, or the Benton that we've seen in the last couple of weeks? It's a rotation, but it's also competition. These guys want to play. They want to maximize the time that they're out there. And if you're one of these last few names that I mentioned, like Black, Equali, Otomeu, and I'll throw Benton in too since he spent at least part of the season in the mythical doghouse, you don't have any option whatsoever to take anything that happens out there lightly. You're not looking across the field and thinking, boy, the Bengals sure do stink. I'm going to give, let me think here. How does 83% effort sound? Can't do it. You can't even come close to conceiving it. And I like that for tonight and beyond. Let's go to the offensive side. There isn't as much of this sort of thing over there because the offensive line guys, the 5 O-line starters are, well, I guess one could argue that they're more set than they should be, especially at left tackle. But they are set. There were 59 offensive snaps against the Browns, and 59 was also the number that was put forth by Mason McCormick, Troy Fautanu, Broderick Jones. Zach Frazier and Isaac Seumalo were out there for everything except the 3 kneel downs at the end. So exempting the quarterback position, the rest of it looks like, and I might be oversimplifying things here, but DK Metcalf, Darnell Washington, and everybody else engaged in some level to some degree of competition. We've talked a lot about tight ends already this week, but to reiterate just one foundational point, Darnell was out there for 47 snaps, Jonnu Smith for 41, and Pat Freiermuth for 21. That's a competition. Nobody wants to be left out of that, whether it's from a snap count perspective or just a production perspective. When you get the ball thrown to you as a Pittsburgh tight end, you don't want to be the one guy that's not making stuff happen. When you're challenged with blocking as a Pittsburgh tight end, you don't want to be the exception. You don't want to be the one who isn't getting that job done. Running backs, much the same. Is Jaylen Warren the number 1 back on this team? Yes, unquestionably. Did he get the most touches on Sunday? No, he didn't. Kenny Gainwell did, even though he logged 11 fewer snaps. Gainwell's just more involved in the passing game. Caleb Johnson was out there for 11 snaps. He carried 6 times. One of those was a really good carry for 9 yards. The rest, there wasn't much there at all. I talk to this young man a lot. Trust me, he knows he's in a competition. He's not about to take the Bengals lightly, or whatever other terminology ends up coming up today. And then there's WR2, as if we don't banter about that enough in these proceedings. It gets played out right in front of our eyes. We saw Roman Wilson make a catch. We saw the ball thrown to Roman Wilson is probably the better way to phrase that. Is he going to be that guy who takes most of Calvin Austin's routes, or is it going to be a more veteran guy like Scotty Miller? Competition, in-game competition. You can get on a roll. You can develop some sort of rapport with your quarterback as it's happening. Ben Skoranek can be in that mix. They aren't thinking about whether or not the Bengals stink. When we come back, J1Q. This segment of Daily Shot is brought to you by our good friends at Mike's Beer Bar. They're located on Federal Street, directly across from PNC Park. Mike has more than 500 beers on tap, including from more than 50 local breweries. Stop in and say hello. Tell Mike we sent you. Mike's Beer Bar. Football season's finally here. Time to check out the latest odds, futures, and win totals on the FanDuel Sportsbook. Think the Steelers are headed to the Super Bowl? Lock in your bets today. Whatever your game, FanDuel Sportsbook delivers the latest lines, futures, and specials, so you can join in on all the action. Today's J1Q comes from Jake, who says, before this Cincinnati game clouds our judgment, DK, can we address how good these Steelers looked and played for long stretches of the 2024 season under Justin Fields and Russell Wilson? I realize the stark difference between the Steelers and the two franchises in New Jersey, but they both looked like legitimate quarterbacks last year, and a large amount of that has to be attributable to the coaching staff. I got something interesting here to share with you. I've actually been saving this for a couple of days, trying to figure out the right place to put it out. This might be it. A friend of mine did some background on quarterbacks under Arthur Smith, meaning the 7 number one quarterbacks that he's had under his watch, whether it was as offensive coordinator or the 3 years that he was head coach in Atlanta. And I'm first going to read off the names of these 7 quarterbacks. We'll start with that. You ready? Stick with this. It's pretty good. Ryan Tannehill, Matt Ryan, Marcus Mariota, Desmond Ridder, Justin Fields, Russell Wilson, and Aaron Rodgers. Got all that? Okay, 4 guys before Pittsburgh, 3 in Pittsburgh. In each of these quarterbacks' season before playing under Smith, those quarterbacks were combined 26 and 46, meaning wins and losses. 26 and 46 in the season before coming to Smith. In their seasons with Smith, this is plural in a lot of cases, those same quarterbacks were 55 and 42. And the punchline, in their seasons after Smith, Rodgers, of course, would not apply, those quarterbacks were 27 and 34. Now, specifically, as you referenced, Fields, of course, is 0 and 5 with the other Jets. Wilson is 0 and 3, and, well, he was 0 and 3. He got benched for Jackson Dart. I don't think he's ever going to see the field again there. In fact, the only one of them that went on to any kind of success afterward, meaning after being under Arthur Smith, was Tannehill, though not to that same level. I mean, the Titans had themselves a pretty dynamic offense, to say the least. The young Derrick Henry, A.J. Brown, and everything else that was going on in Nashville. The point stands. The point's pretty powerful. I understand that quarterbacking is a lot more complicated than wins and losses. I also understand that this would be a much more compelling collection of evidence if we were using something fair like quarterback rating or even yardage or completion percentages and so forth. But this is what I've got. Now, I think that if this is even the grandest of coincidences, and it can't be, it's one heck of a trait to have in your coordinator. If the only thing your offensive coordinator brings to your program is making the quarterback better, or even just getting the best out of that quarterback, whatever it happens to be, awesome. Awesome. You mentioned Fields and Wilson from last year. If you think about Justin's first 4 games last year, Justin looked like an NFL starter. He did some really good things, including throwing the football. And then, ironically, it was the loss in Indianapolis in which I thought he was at his very best. He looked like he was single-handedly going to win that one for the Steelers for a while there. But I also know for a fact that there were certain things that Arthur did with Fields that made sure that he played to his strengths without turning him into some sort of elaborate running back or whatever. Now, where Russ is concerned, Russ is a very different story. Russ pops into the offense against Smith's wishes. Smith wanted to keep working with Fields. And Russ faces, also ironically, I guess, the 2 New Jersey teams and puts up a bunch of points against them. Once the Steelers got into the stronger part of that schedule, a couple of things became exposed and exposed in a hurry. And one was that Russ just didn't have his arm strength anymore. I don't know if that was the case this year with the Giants. I really don't care. But it was definitely a thing with the Steelers in 2024. But even then, what did Arthur do to adjust? He looked at the offense and he said, the one thing we've got is this moonball. The one thing that's going to get us any kind of yardage in chunks is for Russ to put up prayers to George Pickens and hope that George is in the mood to come down with him. So that happened for a bit. Mike Tomlin didn't want to switch back to Fields, and you get the picture. The contrast between Rodgers now and Rodgers with the other Jets last year, I would hope is obvious beyond the one-loss record, because Rodgers is playing for a better team, a better overall team. He'd be the first one to say that if, he wouldn't look bad doing so. But he's also been, and there are measurements galore on this, more accurate. He's throwing more downfield. He's been more mobile. He's been healthier. He's talked about that. It took him a while to recover from that devastating Achilles injury. And I thought he actually got out of the pocket against Cleveland as well as he had since he's been in Pittsburgh. But he himself, Rodgers, is going out of his way, not just when we ask, but bringing it up on his own and crediting Smith for what he's liked about this offense. So, yeah, to rewind to your original question, Jake, that can be attributable to the coaching staff. I appreciate hearing from you. I appreciate everybody who listens to Daily Shot of Steelers. Don't forget, there's no double shot today because of the game tonight. There will be a post-game live shot program that we're going to do from Paycor Stadium. And you, I'm looking at you, have between now and 8:15 p.m. to download the DK Pittsburgh Sports app into your device and email me. You can do both of those things. It'll take you like a combined minute. Email me, dk@dkpittsburghsports.com, to get the discount on the premium level of the app, and you'll be able to enjoy it during the game with our global community of football fans, as well as Chris Halleck and myself reporting to you live from the scene of the game before, during, and after. All of that happens on our app. Email me, dk@dkpittsburghsports.com.